back now to domestic politics, because a new poll suggests that the Liberal Democrat and Green voters would vote for Labour in order to prevent Nigel Farage from entering Downing Street at the next general election. The huge story, tactical voting. One man who's been talking about this for a long time is my next guest. That's the CEO of Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter. Martin, a pleasure to have your company. So we hear apparently from the top brass, Morgan McSweeney, his team have the attitude, even if they hate us, they hate Farage more. And so the emergence here is of tactical voting. If your first vote is Lib Dem or Green or even Tories in split marginal seats where Reform could win to either Labour or the Conservatives, basically people will switch their votes. You've got a very impressive piece of software at Electoral Calculus. Martin, you've done two charts for me here. The first one on our screen now is without tactical voting. Talk us through some numbers.
Yes, good evening, Martin. As you say, viewers to your programme may find some of this a little bit familiar because we've been talking about it since September, but we're very glad that YouGov have matched our figures and come up with very similar conclusions, which is that tactical voting looks like it's very real and very important. And we can see that here in the figures. So displayed, we show what would happen if there were an election tomorrow and there were no tactical voting at all. And in this case, Nigel Farage would sweep into number 10 Downing Street with a three-figure majority of 118 seats. So Reform on 384 seats. So dare I say, possibly even beyond Reform's wildest dreams, or certainly at the edges of their wildest dreams. But, you know, a massive change up from just 5 seats at the last general election. If there were no tactical voting, then Reform would have 384 seats. But...
Okay. So, Martin, the next graphic, let's get the next one up, and it's a significant difference. This is with tactical voting, and you can see that majority slips right back, Martin Baxter. Let's get our second graphic to a majority of just 6.
So there's instead of being 3 digits, Martin, you can count it with the fingers of 2 hands there. Majority of 6, 328 seats. So more than 50 seats fewer than with tactical voting. And that's because not only is the tactical voting between the centre-left parties, that Labour, Lib Dem and Greens will kind of vote for each other if their own preferred party is not competitive.
Your personal data could be exposed right now without you even knowing it. And if you want it removed, use incogni.com/GB News in the description now and get 60% off an annual plan on us. Incogni reach out to the data brokers on your behalf and request that your information be deleted from their databases. And they'll keep sending removal requests to make sure your data stays gone. Sometimes your information ends up on strange, obscure websites that automated tools just can't reach. And that's why Incogni just launched their unlimited plan with a feature called Custom Removals. With this, you can submit any link where your personal information appears, literally paste in the URL, and their privacy team will investigate and work to get it removed. And getting started is super easy. Hit the link in the description, create an Incogni account, and tell them whose data you want removed. Grant them permission to work on your behalf, and then all you've got to do is sit back and relax. They'll keep you updated along the way. Incogni is totally risk-free for 30 days. If you try it, it's not for you, you'll get a full refund. So take back control of your personal data today with Incogni. Use our code GBNews at checkout via the link in the description, and you'll get 60% off an annual plan.
But YouGov measured, and we measured as well, that Labour and Lib Dem voters would even vote Conservative to keep Reform out. So Morgan McSweeney is quite right that it is one of the straws that Labour can clutch, that it will certainly help Labour. They'll get, what is it now, 17 more seats. The Conservatives get 30 more seats, so it helps the two big old parties. But even on those figures, even with tactical voting, if everybody who says might vote tactically votes tactically, Nigel Farage is still Prime Minister, but with a smaller majority. But that underscores there's a massive political earthquake that we are seeming to look at the moment.
And Martin Baxter, the point here is it wouldn't save the bacon of the Labour Party. They would still be swept from power at current polling. And it's worth pointing out your figures here, I believe, are an amalgam of the last 5 polls. So this is a good, solid average. The Labour Party wouldn't survive annihilation at the election, but they would survive with a few more seats. The Tories would survive with a few more seats, but the net recipient is the Reform margin of victory is compressed, which could tip us towards something more looking like a coalition government. And if that were to happen, that would be a Reform majority with this data, potentially with the Conservatives. But at present, it's still not enough to stop Nigel Farage.
No, that's absolutely right. It's an average of 4 polls. But yes, we always love an average of polls rather than take just the most recent one. Everything you said is completely right. That a majority of 6, of course, if the wind could blow a little bit either way and Reform could be short of a majority, then a Reform Conservative coalition would be very possible. So it may not save Labour's bacon, but certainly if I was Labour or advising Labour, I'd absolutely tell them to say this, that a vote for Labour, only Labour can stop Farage, is a slogan I think we'll hear a lot of in the next 4 years.
And it's worth pointing out that your software, which is wizardry and very clever, it factors in every single person maximum tactical voting. So in a sense, this is the data you're presenting here is if tactical voting is implemented in its strongest form. So this may over-exaggerate the impact of it. Is that correct or not?
I'll back off slightly from that. We asked people. We did a survey of about 10,000 people with our friends at Find Out Now back in September, and we asked them, how would you vote if, suppose your seat was a Conservative Reform battleground? So we asked Labour voters, and some Labour voters will stick with Labour. So we respect their choice there and say, OK, those voters will not vote tactically. So it's about half of Labour voters would vote tactically to say support Lib Dems and a third to support the Conservatives.
Martin, I want to quickly get up 2 maps. One is the first map here is without tactical voting. Let's get that up. Bosh. As you can see, that is your turquoise tidal wave. You can see there the country.
A lot of light blue, isn't there? Yeah. So
a lot of turquoise.
Particularly note the Conservatives are almost disappearing except around the borders of Scotland, and Labour have lost a lot of the red wall that are offset off to the centre right there with Manchester, Yorkshire and Merseyside.
Martin, so quickly now, map 2, this is with tactical voting. You can see a significant difference there. And the Conservatives are looking like picking up a few more seats there, and Labour a few more
seats sprinkled around the north and the south, and Labour picking up or holding some of the seats in the red wall. It would still be a disastrous night for Labour if anything like this happened, but tactical voting will make it slightly less bad.
OK, superb stuff. So much food for thought. Tactical voting is a thing, and perhaps everybody, whatever their persuasion, needs to start thinking about where their vote counts and how best to deploy it. There's no way that they're going to allow Nigel Farage to go towards Downing Street without putting up a significant fight. Martin Baxter, beautiful, as ever. Thanks for joining us. That's his reaction from the Labour cows who's stuck with me throughout that, and that is Stuart Fawcett. Stuart, there we go. Tactical voting, no doubt, will be a huge part of the next election, but at the moment it's not enough to save the Labour Party.
Yeah, I think polls are very nice to smell sometimes, but not always that great to swallow, is the warning on this one. But I think, look, tactical voting has been around since well before Nigel Farage and Reform came onto the scene. I recognise that seems like ancient history now sometimes. But I think there's a few factors that this poll probably doesn't take into account. I had a look before I came on, and that there was 60% of people didn't think Nigel Farage was up to the job of being Prime Minister within some of the polls that came out.
Keir Starmer's approval ratings recently.
Well, I'll come on to that because I think there's 2 elements where leadership and locality matters, because in this country we have a constituency system. So it does matter where you are and how that has an effect upon these polls. And I noted in some of them there was sort of these talks about Lib Dem and Green voters and where they would go. But I think what we need to understand is those kind of people don't always want to vote for the other party either. And they may not be doing it to stop Reform, but actually because they see a sensible middle ground with a potential Labour government. And then there's another element, which is local, which is, I think, a really interesting angle on Reform at the moment. They've seen a lot of councillors now being elected, but at the moment, the Labour Party has 400 MPs, Conservatives just over 100 and Reform 5. And if we look at the Caerphilly by-election, where Plaid Cymru came in really well, it spoke to people's local concerns. And I think Reform, credit to them, have done well in speaking to that large concern. but I don't think they're getting through locally.
OK, Stuart, that was one by-election. Replicating that across 650 seats would be very, very different. Thank